So, an introduction. Good business is seldom conducted with a handshake and a smile. It used to be. You used to, walk away with the homeowner saying, let's go ahead and get started with the work. And you shake their hands and you show up the next day and you start installing their irrigation system. You may not want to do that these days with as crazy as people are with their money. They act like they have more of it than they actually do. You see these young couples buying these big $350,000 houses, so they want their yards looking great. They need an irrigation system, and you kind of find out that they really can't afford the house, and they definitely can't afford their irrigation. So you would want a contract with a homeowner. I wouldn't do it without it. At least a signed estimate, or write up that small contract to do it. Now, if you're working for larger general contractors, you're going to have a contract that you're going to sign with them anyway. If you're working for a home builder, you may or may not. We still have the reputation with some of the builders we work for. They can call us, we install the system, we know we're going to get paid, but it's a relationship that's been going on for 20 plus years, so we can still do that handshake and a smile. But anybody that's new, or any of the larger general contracting firms, I'm going to make sure that the contract is legit, and that it protects me as well. With the homeowners, you're going to be the one writing the contract. With working for the large GCs, they're going to be writing the contract, so you would want to read it thoroughly, and you'll want to ask for a copy of the specifications. Not all of them want to give you a copy of the specification, because that's something they can always hold on you later down the road. If it does end up in court or anything of that nature, they can say, well, you didn't follow the specifications. Well, you didn't give me a copy. Well, you didn't ask for a copy. So it can get to he said, she said kind of thing. So specifications, they are a method of communication. It can be the communication between you, the irrigation contractor, and the client. Or it could be a method of communication between you and the client's agent. Now, who could be the client's agent? It could be the home builder, it could be a construction manager, it could be a landscape architect, it could be a landscape designer, it could even be the real estate broker if it's a new house that you've bought it. And anybody can represent the client when it comes to you working for them installing their irrigation systems. Now, the specifications, they are going to be a part of the request for bids. You can look at them then, you can view them. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have to go and get a copy of it, whether or not they make it available online as they do some of the plans. But they're always going to be a part of it, and you can ask to see a copy of it. They're going to be a part of the contract documents. They're going to tell you exactly what you need to do. I don't know if you've watched the other lectures. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, or it may be my classes that I teach, to my students face to face. We had an incident situation where we did a large project for a college in Greensboro. I'm not going to say the name, but the specifications called for Schedule 40 pipe. We showed up with PSR 200, and we were getting ready to start digging. We were actually having to bore underneath a bunch of sidewalks at first, and the college itself had a construction manager on site that looked over all the construction going on campus. And he walked up and he saw that we had the PSR 200 and said, look, hey, you got to have the Schedule 40. It was in the specifications. It didn't say that on the actual irrigation plan. It was in the specification. So that was a my fault kind of thing, but gladly he walked up and we were able to catch that right off the hand. What if we'd installed 200 feet of the pipe and buried it, and they made us rip it out and do it over again? So about got burned there, but luckily he came by and caught it. Also on that same job, we were actually doing grass pavers for firefighters to come over to drive the truck around the new building. They needed to have access all the way around, and with the depth of the concrete being a foot plus, the trucks could roll over it. Well, for the turf grass, we had to actually do these grass pavers where we had to have so many inches of compacted gravel, compacted sand. We'd lay down these like egg grate looking things, fill it full of topsoil, and then layer sod on top of it. And supposedly the fire trucks could drive over that. Well, our estimator at the time, we were large enough that myself or my father weren't able to estimate, and that was something I wasn't a big fan of. I always wanted to be in the field with the crews. So he estimated the job and just noted that it was grass pavers. He put down a rough price of it. He didn't know that it cost us an extra $10,000 to order in these egg type great looking structures that went into to the grass pavers. Cost us money because we didn't read the specifications. So please always ask for the copy of that specification. And of course, the specifications are going to be part of the final contract. You've just got to make sure you read it. Now, the specification guys are going to be as thick as a telephone book. What you need to do is kind of pull out your part of it. Pull out the irrigation, pull out the landscaping, pull out the erosion control. Anything that's going to be related to site work or site development, you need to have a copy of that to be able to read it. The specifications, they protect the owner. They protect the environment. And lastly but not least is they protect us, the contractor. And the biggest thing is it's for the payment. How are we going to get paid? Read the specification, guys. You may not be in a situation where you can finance the project. We did, a ton of the O'Reilly auto parts for creative structures all over the southeastern United States. And the specifications required that upon completion of the job, and we did their irrigation, we did their landscape installation, it was turnkey job. We would spend 2 to 3 days per job working 15, 16 hours a day on site and then traveling to the next one. The specifications call it upon completion of the work, the irrigation was on the turf grass, it was running. We had to submit our application of payment before the 30th of this month to get paid by the 15th of the following month. I'm not talking about, so like if it was December 30th, if we submitted our payment application by December 30th, we would get paid by like in February sometime. It wasn't the next month. And it was strange because we would always notice that the superintendents would call us, not December 20th so we could get the job done by December 30th. They would call us around December 25th, 26th, and knowing we only had 3 or 4 days to get the job done before the 30th, well, they were trying to fix it where we wouldn't be done by the 30th to submit the application for payment to get paid 45 days later. They wanted to make sure that they had that extra month. Wait, guys, you didn't get your payment application in by the 30th of this month. You can turn it in the next month to be paid, 45 some days later on that. You may not be in a situation where you can do that. You may be short on funds, short on cash flow. So read those specifications and say, hey, this ain't worth me doing this job at this particular point of the year. Writing the specifications. Again, the author can be the landscape architect, it can be the landscape designer, it could be a building architect, it may even be a design build general contractor, and it could be a property manager. So, if the specifications are written by a landscape architect, they're going to be pretty much in realm with, they're in the same industry as we are, so they're going to know about irrigation systems. Same thing with the landscape designer. They should know enough about irrigation that they should be able to write a specification for you guys to install it. But when you start talking about property managers or real estate brokers or anything of that nature, you need to read it carefully because they may be using a generic one-size-fits-all specifications that is not tailored to your property. They do not like the one-size-fits-all. They used to in the old days do the cut and paste manually. They would cut it, tape it, photocopy it, and use it, but they were still building those specifications per project. A lot of these authors may or may not know about irrigation. They may not know about the site that they are working for. So they are going to vary widely. There is no one-size-fits-all specifications, even though they're going to try to implement such a specification. Read it. Make sure that it fits your property and that it is particularly written for irrigation contractors. And again, it's written for Pacific property. It's not a generic one-size-fits-all specifications. Public agencies. They are going to take the lowest acceptable bid no matter what. So again, is this the type of people that you want to work for? They are also going to have the most detailed specifications, which is what kind of, I don't know, drives me a little bit crazy. They're going to accept the lowest acceptable bid. They're going to make their specifications a lot more detailed and a lot harder to read, and they may even start hiding some of that information within the specifications. But they are going to require that the bidders be qualified, either financially, make sure they've been in business for a while, and make sure that they're a legit contractor. But we all know it's not that hard to get qualified to do work. You have an irrigation license, you have your landscape contractor license, you're bonded, you've got your insurance. So pretty much they're looking for those. But you could be the rookie on the street. May not figured out how to quite bid some of these irrigation jobs. You get the job because you were the lowest bid. You didn't read all the detailed specifications, and guess what? You're soon out of business because you've done too many jobs for too low of a price. These public agencies, they're going to hire you, yeah, because it's easy to get qualified to do these jobs, but putting that estimate on the job is where some of the younger contractors get hurt. Outlines for specification. The title of the project. They're going to tell you where it is, where it's located in the name of the job, the scope of the work, what is to be done. What is to be done within this job. And then we have the general conditions and technical specifications, which we'll talk a little bit here a little more in detail. Title. The title is the subject of the specification. Irrigation installations for Mr. Eric Jones. Can just include areas of the property. So it doesn't have to be my whole house. It could just be the irrigation system for the front yard of Mr. Eric Jones. He only wants irrigation in the front because in the back he's gonna pave it. He's gonna put brick pavers down everywhere. He only needs it in the front. That is the title of the specifications. Scope of the work provides a very brief overview of what is expected of the successful irrigation contractor. Leaves out excessive details. It does, however, provide material, labor, equipment, supervision, transportation, and the licensing and insurance that you need for the job. So let's go back to the material. I made that oops for the college in Greensboro there. I did not look at the material that they required. They required Schedule 40, and we made an oops. Luckily, we got lucky, and the construction manager walked by. Labor, they may require that you use that all of your employees and that your subcontractors have the correct insurance and that they all be legal citizens. They will come around and check. I've seen it. Or they come around and say, hey, does everybody here have a green card? Are they authorized to work? Are they part of the H-2B program? They want to see legitimate legal employees on their sites. They may specify which type of equipment you can use and which type of equipment not to use. They may require that you have a supervisor on site at all times, no matter what. Designate an employee who is the supervisor of this job. They may dictate the transportation of equipment to and from the job. When we had an issue with the college down there, there were certain places we couldn't park. We may have to get there a little early to reserve a spot. We may have to work a little late until the faculty and staff left that job. You have to work around the people that you're doing the work for. And then they're going to want to see that you have the irrigation license. I mean, it's a state law now. You have to have it. They're going to make sure you're bonded, which you have to be bonded to get the license. They're going to want to make sure that you have your workers' comp and your general liability. All that has to be a part of the scope of work for the projects. General conditions. Address important business, safety, operations, definitions, restrictions, and other non-horticultural items to protect the site, client, and irrigation contractor. So they may be telling you your guys have to have orange safety vest. They may have to wear a hard hat all the time. They may say you need to do tree protection so many feet out. You have to put the orange fencing up. It's going to address it in the general conditions. It's going to specify who the owner is. They're going to say Mr. Eric Jones only wanting to do his front yard irrigation, hereby is termed owner. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, irrigation, hereby is the irrigation contractor or contractor hereof. So they don't have to spell out the name of each person. They can just use owner and then contractor or irrigation contractor within the general conditions. So they're going to spell out the location of the contract within the general conditions. They're going to talk about the period of service or the contract duration. You may only have so many weeks to get the irrigation job done. It's going to talk about the materials, the schedule, when are you going to start digging, or when are you going to install the second meter? When are you going to install the backflow? When are you going to come back and reset the heads? All this needs to be scheduled out, especially on larger commercial general contractor projects. And again, materials, what type of pipe you're using, what size pipe are you using. Other items included your insurance requirements, your license, your tax ID number. Definitely got to get that to them for tax purposes. And a lot of the GCs, insurance companies won't let them write it to an individual. They have to write that check to the company. The protection and safety, and then protection of existing structures and facilities will all be listed in the general conditions. Other items that are included: protection of property during inclement weather, trying to think of a situation like that. You could be installing a backflow when it starts to, in cold weather and it's going to start freezing. Or you're going to make sure that if power's not out there to the backflow yet, you can't use heat tape, or how are you going to keep it from freezing, especially with the pipes coming up out of the ground, to the backflow. All that'll be addressed in general conditions. The safety, and the safety gear that your employees are going to have to use, the traffic and vehicle safety procedures. You may have to have, one or two employees dedicated just to directing traffic around the job site, because your trucks and trailers and equipment's going to be parked there on the road. It can address the employee conduct and dress code. The specifications can say all employees of ABCDEFG irrigation needs to look the same. When the general contractor or construction manager comes up to the job site, they will need to be able to identify who you are, and they may say that everybody needs to be dressed the same. Supervision and labor, again, it's going to tell you that somebody needs to be supervising the laborer people that work for you. You need to have a dedicated supervisor for the job if it's not yourself, the business owner. Payment schedule, man, this is a big one. Again, just remember what I talked about. You may have to do a payment application. With the payment application, you may have to submit again another certificate of insurance stating that you are in compliance with your workers' compensation and general liability. A lot of times, guys let this stuff expire. Every time we got paid from Creative Structures for doing the O'Reillys, we had to submit another certificate of insurance, and they called the insurance company all the time. Hey, you just got a certificate from Elite Landscaper. Are they in compliance? Yes. We never let it lapse. Dispute resolution, how things are going to be handled, whether it's through arbitration or is it going to, what are the first steps if there is a dispute. It's going to tell you how to do it in the general conditions. Cancellation of the agreement, how you as the irrigation contractor can back out of the contract, or how can the owner or GC fire you? That'll be laid out in the cancellation of agreement. Communications and reports. How many times a week are you going to need to report to the construction manager or owner? Are there going to be reports? And these reports could be, completion of work, expected completion dates. Again, all of it will be outlined in the general conditions. And then it's going to state out when the owner or the construction manager is going to do project inspections. And these project inspections may have certain things that you need to get done prior to that inspection. Bidder qualifications. It could include that you have to be in business a number of years. They may not want the rookie irrigation contractor who's just passed the state exam. They may want to see a track record of you been in business. Not that you've had the experience to take the exam, because you can work for an irrigation contractor for so many years, but you decide to go on your own business. They want to see how many years you've been in business. They may want to see financial statements. That's something your accountant should be able to get for you pretty quickly, especially if you're keeping track of everything within QuickBooks or an accounting software program. They may want to look at your equipment. They may want to see that that it's new and that it's up to date. They may require you to attend a pre-proposal conference, and that could be weeks out or months out before they even accept the bid. This will outline things that are in the general conditions. They can require you to go to this before you can submit a bid. Even if they don't require it, I highly recommend sending someone to this pre-proposal conference. That way you can look at the pick up a set of plans, look at the specifications, maybe try to get a copy of the specification, or at least find out where you may get a reproducible copy of it. Limitations of work. It's going to protect you and the owner from acts of God. What if you install an irrigation controller and they had a huge lightning storm and it burned it up? That should be in the limitations of work. What about vandalism? Well, here at the college I work at, we just built a brand new greenhouse, and it wasn't a few weeks after that every piece of glass in the greenhouse got broken. We also had some brick pavers and some stone and stuff that we were working with outside of our facility. We keep small amounts of material. They built the new greenhouse for us with glass, and we're assuming it was some young kids, but they threw every brick and rock that we had available. They jumped the fence. We had a high fence around the facility, but they climbed over it, jumped into it, and threw all the bricks and rock through the glass. Now, the contractor that just put the greenhouse up for us, he wasn't responsible for that. He was protected in the limitations of work. Vandalism is not the contractor's responsibility. It's going to happen occasionally. And then work that's not in a contract. Again, you start working for somebody, and this might be even true for more so for homeowners. You give them a contract to do work, and then they start getting your employees, well, can you do this while you're here? Can you do that while you're here? Guess what? It's not in the contract. You shouldn't have to do it. Technical specifications. The essence of instructions to bidders that communicate the chronology, methods, materials, restrictions, standards, grades, and quality that are requested and required. There's going to be several sections within the technical specifications, and these are the copies of the specs you want to get, especially for trees, shrubs, turf grass, seasonal colors, ground covers, walks, parking, especially if you're doing irrigation within the parking, or you may be installing some low voltage lighting in the parking lot. And then even the irrigation, they may call 100% for everything to be Rainbird. You may be a Toro man. You've got to read these specifications and learn what the owner and the author of these specifications are requiring. Good instance of a friend, a again, you guys have probably heard this story in previous lectures, but a buddy of mine worked for a large landscape company here out of Winston that did some work in Raleigh. They planted, I can't remember how many trees, but they planted several trees. And I'm talking about, in the hundreds. I mean, it was a large complex that they were working at. Well, the specifications required that the wire baskets be removed from the tree. They never read the specifications. They would never dreamed of wanting somebody to remove the wire basket. And I know that's a topic of discussion in the horticulture industry, just like, is it better to bag grass or not bag grass? So we're not going to get into that, but the idea is, the main point is the landscape architect required that the tree wire baskets be removed. Well, they went ahead and planted all these trees. I mean, like I said, it was in the hundreds, over 100 anyway. And the landscape architect, the guy that wrote the specifications, showed up to the job site one day with a shovel. And he dug around the tree and called my buddy over there and said, "Hey, there's still wire basket on these trees." He's like, "Yeah, we didn't remove the baskets." He's like, "It was required that you guys remove the wire basket. It was in the specifications." He's like, "Holy smoly." Guess what they ended up doing? Pulling up every tree, removing the wire basket, and replanting them. So they got to do it twice. Again, that wouldn't have happened if they'd have read the specifications. Reading the specifications, they may have disagreed or agreed with the landscape architect, but if they didn't agree with it, maybe they could have talked to the owner and explained to them why they felt like they should have left the wire basket on there. Again, you're working for the owner, you're working for the one that writes the check, and if you can explain to them some reasoning behind why you disagree, maybe or maybe not they'll go with you. But ultimately, you're working for the owner, and you're going to go with what the specifications say. Contractor prepared specs. They're less detailed than those produced by landscape architects or designers. True, we want to be in the field, we want to be in the office writing these specifications. But what they do need to have is the schedule list. Hey, you're going to have to mow it, or you're going to have to come back and prune it, or you're going to have to fertilize the job if it's a landscape installation job. Is it irrigation, or you're going to provide them with a complimentary shutdown and startup for the winter? Is it going to include any other type of items that you may want? If you are the one writing the specifications, you're in control of it. Suit it to benefit you. It's got to protect the owner too, but you're in control here when you're writing the specifications. Contracts. A contract is an agreement enforceable by law protecting the client and contractor. Communicate exactly what is to be done, by whom, for a given compensation, and over what specified period of time. And I think a lot of the time we get in trouble with this specified period of time. We can take too long to do the job, which drives me absolutely crazy. For one, I'm not getting my money. And every day that you're delaying it, you may have to pay a penalty to the owner, especially in the larger contractors, but it also holds you up from getting your pay. The quicker you get a job done, the quicker you can bill it out and do your payment applications, the quicker you're going to get your money. If you keep piddling around, not completing the job, and staying within the specified period of time to do it, you're just losing money, and you're not getting that money quick. You're financing the project for them. You need to have defense against consumer ignorance and unreasonable demands and acts of God. Consumer ignorance. You've installed an irrigation system in July, and they've also installed new sod on the property, and you're the one responsible for the irrigation system, and then they call you and blame you. The landscape contractor calls you, the irrigation contractor, "My sod is dead. You just installed an irrigation system." Well, you show up to the job and you realize, and you walk around and you go over there and see that the controller's been pulled out of the plug. It came out of the plug, or that the system was off. Make sure that you're protecting yourself against the husband going out there fooling around with the irrigation system, or he likes playing with the controllers, and you start going through the system and you realize, man, he's cut the minutes down to nothing. No wonder the grass died. And if you are writing your own contract, have an attorney review it. If you're adapting, a pre-designed one, or you're developing a contract of your own, again, keep that attorney on retainer, have him look at it, and he needs to be a part of your board of directors anyway. Contract is going to have the general scope. It establishes the overall business terms of an agreement. The scope of work is the same as with the specs. It locates the exact dimensions and location given. It's going to talk about payment. How do you get paid? Your biggest concern of a contract. Inspections. When are they going to happen? What if we had adverse conditions? What if we're installing an irrigation system in the month of January for a large commercial property that's supposed to open in March? And they want to have irrigation, so when they put the sod out, but we have 2 weeks of snow that delays the schedule. You need to have something in there that's saying, we are not affected by, Mother Nature coming in and dumping all this snow on us. Safeguards, additional work. Again, especially with residential, it drives me crazy that our guys are there, replacing an irrigation head or something, and it's part of the contract, and that they're only supposed to be there 30 minutes to do that, and they get there and the homeowner asked them to haul off some brush that they've cut, and they show up at the shop with a truckload of brush, and you're like, where'd that come from? Well, it came from the job that I was there to replace the irrigation head or something. Make sure that your guys understand that they're only supposed to do what the contract said. And if you do any damage to the site, you may be responsible or will be responsible for replacing the damage. The specification section, the technical specs of the bid document are attached and become part of the contract agreement. You will see that you may be signing a telephone book contract for these larger jobs. Breach of contract, what happens if you do not do what the contract says? How's that going to affect you? Mediation and arbitration, if there's any disputes, will be listed in it. How to cancel the contract by both parties. What about the liquidated damages will be stated in the contract. And then again, there will be the signature line for the contract. The sections and subsections for technical specifications have these 8 sections. 1 will be turf grass management, 2 shrub management, 3 is tree management, 4 is palms. May or may not affect us depending on where we live in North Carolina. It'll have ground cover management, have pest management and pesticides. Are we supposed to provide turf care for the sod that we've installed for a year? Non-horticulture items, and then irrigation system repair and management. Are we required, with this contract price for installing the system, are we required to do a complimentary shutdown and startup, or are we supposed to include that pricing in our overall price? So these 8 sections is what you will be looking for in the specifications.